Okay, we will call this finance committee meeting to order. And, we're all present. Dan arrived sooner than he thought.
I don't mess around.
Okay, no problem.
The good citizens can know they can count on me.
Yeah, that's important. So, next will be, approval of minutes. This is, minutes were drafted for January 28th of this year. Any changes or anything? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We didn't need a motion first.
Need a motion on that?
Yes.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Now we'll.
Got the motion, now we'll move, no changes, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Next will be public appearance, non-agenda items. We will let that one go tonight. Seeing there's no one here. Next will be number 4, the finance director's report. Misty?
Yes, so property tax collection is done now. So we collected about $57 million through when tax bills went out mid-December through January 31st. So lots of transactions happening. It worked out to be about 70% of the total bills that went out. So a lot of people still are using not using the installments, paying it all up front. And then now that that's done, we're starting to work on audit. So audit will be here in about 3 to 4 weeks. So we go from one thing into the next. Tom, the auditors, will want to speak with you again as finance chair. And then again, if you guys have any things that you want to talk to the auditors about, feel free to reach out to them directly, or I can put you in contact with them.
Is it the same group that was here before?
In November.
Yeah, it's in
Yep.
the fall, I remember, okay.
Yep.
Okay, I do remember that, okay. All right. Next will be, review of checks for 10,000 and above. These are dated 1/16/20 through 1/31/20. Total is $522,693.62. Any questions?
Can you clarify
Yep.
the reimbursement for Blackhawk?
Yep, so they were required to put down, generally they do a letter of credit instead, but this particular entity wanted to give us the cash payment, and then we held on to it. Now that the building is built and they've met all their requirements, we have reimbursed them the portion that we were allowed to. We're still holding on to a little bit of it for various things, but the bulk of it was returned to them.
No other questions?
Okay, next will be, the next area will be review of all checks issued 1/20/252 through 1/20/396. These are dated 1/16/20 through 1/31/20. Total is $656,446.30. Any questions with this group? Did you see anything?
Not for me.
Okay. Next will be review of ACH payments for 10,000 and above. These are dated January of this year. Total was $294,642.50. Any questions with that group? Okay. Next will be review of all ACH payments. These are dated January of this year. The total is $305,626.53. Any questions with that?
What is Wex Bank?
So WEX is the fuel company they're kind of like gas cards or fleet cards that you can use at any gas stations around the city and around the state. I think it might even be nationally. We like that program because we actually get reimbursed the state taxes, the gas taxes on that card. So with our staff, we tell them first priority would be the WEX card because it's actually cheapest for us there. Second step would be we have city pumps that people can use, but since we can't take a full tanker, it's actually more expensive to get it from city pumps than it is from WEX. And then third choice would be using the P card if they were in a bind. So it's really just a payment mechanism where we get the taxes reimbursed.
Thank you.
Okay, next will be P-card transactions for 10,000 and above. These are dated December 6th, 2019. That total is $139,785.08. Any questions on that?
No questions.
I'll note that this one's a little late with the holidays. We're having a hard time getting the information back from all the card holders, so that's why you see 2 cycles on this meeting.
Next will be the review of P-card transactions. These are cycle ending December 6th. And Missy just explained this, 2019, this total is $319,694.33. The last one is P-card transactions. These are for cycle ending January 6, 2020. This total is $103,158.57. Any questions?
No, no questions for me.
For you two, just a heads up, just for the public too, because I was thinking about this today as I was looking at this. In about 8 minutes, we went through a whole lot of money for the city. And I brought this up when I first got on finance, and just so you know, and so the public knows, what happens here is, tell me if I'm wrong.
Of course.
The department head looks at the bills, and then they go from the department head to Misty. I might have this in not the right order, but they go to Misty, she checks them, and then they go to the city administrator. So there's about 2 or 3 levels of checks and balances before they get to us. Am I thinking right?
Mhm.
They are also fully audited by somebody on my staff. So I review them, but they're also fully audited
Okay.
by someone else.
I think the public should be aware of that, just that they go through a number of channels before they get to us. Because, as I just stated, every night, finance, the beginning of our finance meetings, there's a lot of money that goes through the hands here, but to a degree, we trust the people that are looking at those, you know.
The other thing that we've discussed, I think, in previous meetings is there's a significant number of these items that are purchased under state contract, and so there's some pretty significant vetting that goes on in that process for contracts typically of $1 million or more, to make sure that not only is the state, but then any cities and counties that want to leverage that volume are able to do that, and we consistently see that in the technology thing. You know, the point that I'm going to bring up is a nitpicky one. We've got a transaction in here for Hy-Vee. We don't need any action on my point. My orneriness comes around the fact of what we've got with pending activities with them. And part of me says I would rather not see business go to an organization that isn't taking ownership of their fair portion of taxes.
That's a fair point.
I'm off my soapbox.
Okay, no problem. Just a little heads up on that, that's all, nothing special, just that it does go through a process here.
The one last thing I would like to point out is there is no transactions P-card for January 6th cycle that was more than 10,000. So it's not that there's another agenda item coming, there just wasn't anything that existed that was that higher dollar amount this time.
Okay, the next part, we're under discussion items, or action items. The first one was a discussion item in reference to DaneCom. And actually, Chief, I think I'm gonna just ask you to kind of explain what that is, and I kind of cover it so I don't say it twice.
Sure, absolutely. So my first year in the city here, we were actually finalizing the DaneCom agreement and going live with the system. DaneCom doesn't just serve the fire department, it actually serves municipalities, which is why this is billed to the municipality and covered under emergency management, not under the fire department, not under the police department, and not under Fitchburg. All systems use it, to include our public works department. Everything had to be upgraded and updated in order for these communications to work with the equipment that was in vehicles and in stations in buildings. And so that lent itself to the costs associated with operation. There's maintenance associated with the system every year, and that's one of the things that we pay into. In addition to what Danecom did early on, prior to my arrival here, the previous fire chief did an audit of the system to try to figure out what our coverage was. There was some vulnerable areas because of our rural nature that left us with limited coverage in certain areas. Because we were going to this system, he wanted to have that addressed. There was additional equipment put into the system specific to Fitchburg, and there was an additional cost associated with that. I can't give too much information about the background there other than what I know based in writing because of the fact that that was all agreed upon prior to my arrival.
Is there any dead spots in the city now then, Chief?
The city is pretty well covered. We do a couple of different things. There's the Danecom system, which is mostly digital, and then we have a backup analog system that was always sort of in place. We use that for police, fire, EMS as well. What that allows us to do is to have a tactical channel that is independent of Danecom in the event that certain areas have these dead spots. I hate to call them dead spots, it's just you don't always get picked up right away. And in emergency communication, that can be detrimental. So what we have is redundancy is built-in system, and that was done on purpose in advance of going live with Danecom.
And you may not have this in front of you, but what drew me to this was just the size of the system, the coverage for Fitchburg. Misty, do we pay monthly, yearly into this thing, or has it gone up in price since, no, just the last couple of years? Let's not go way back. But just the last couple of years, has this gone up in price?
It absolutely has, and Joe actually pulled some information on that topic too in the packet. So
Yeah, so in the packets, if you look at the breakdown, starting right, actually, let me see, I think we submitted the newest one that was just released this last week. If you go to page 204, it's 22 of my packet, page 204, it starts getting into some of those costs that are shared. It gives you the breakdown as far as what has been spent. On page 205, it gives you an idea of what our expense was in 2019. That is just one expense that was received. That was part 2 of a 2-part payment, so I apologize. I know there's a lot of paperwork here. It's a big system. So if I look at page 186, for example, sorry to go back and forth.
186?
186.
Okay.
Gives you an idea of what the costs were for 2019. For Fitchburg, that was $21,227.
So when we look at 185, it's the program overall, and then page 186 is the breakdown of the respective municipalities to support the subtotal that I'm seeing on 185.
Right, and typically they bill out in different increments. Dane County does to cover their expenses. They have a couple of different totals on the bottom of 186. You'll see that they have the 153 and the 219, and then the county share. So towns, villages, and cities is what VNC stand for versus TVNC. Towns are listed separately because a lot of times there's an incorporation issue. But villages and cities are listed separately. Typically, the cities pay more because of assessed value. So we have the costs of program identified two different ways, population and assessed value, all right? How's
Probably equalized is my guess.
equalized value? I always get that word wrong, so I have to look over to Misty and be corrected. So the equalized value of the municipality, along with their population, is put into a formula, and that identifies how much a municipality pays based on their anticipated usage and their ability to pay.
Misty, do we get these, the prices, I'm not sure of this, from the county?
Yep, so the county has a governing board, and then the county puts this information together, and then it goes to Joe to process the payment.
Has the
And
city of Fitchburg ever questioned it?
We continually look at it, and we are trying to optimize our usage. So I can tell you that we do our best to minimize the expense that's associated with the system. It's going to be an ongoing expense. We knew that going into it because of the fact that everything needs to be maintained. We anticipate that eventually equipment will have to be replaced. And we're trying to do that in such a way that makes our expenses a little bit more predictable, and so that we only have one entity in charge of it. If you have multiple entities in charge, it's very difficult to make things happen and get the approvals that are necessary. So we'd rather pay into a system that is cost effective, that addresses the fact that we are paying for what we're getting, but we're not paying much more than anybody else.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay.
And I think if you look at the breakdown, there's one municipality that pays. They don't put Madison on here because Madison has a different type of radio system, and they contribute to DaneCom in a different way because they also put their own dispatchers in the center. So
Mhm.
Madison has a different formula and actually pays more into the system based on how they contribute and participate in the system. The only municipality that pays more than us is Sun Prairie, and that it would be predictable based on how they're developing and their population and the fact that it's similar to ours.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Anybody have any other questions about this, or anything special? I was curious, Misty, over the past several years, or Joe, you probably have it there, I didn't. Has this, from one year to the next, has it pretty been, or does it, I didn't get in the breakdown, does it go in, like last several years has been pretty level, but then the last few years, has it jumped, or?
I don't see it jumping. It does, it incrementally goes up. The raises in those rates have been somewhat consistent. I think initially there was a huge outlay of capital expenses that went into this program, and now we're seeing the maintenance costs basically maintain a steady rate, but it hasn't been flatlined. It's escalated. It's another good reason to keep our eye on what we're paying into the program.
And the system just went live in the last few years, right? So our maintenance
Well, I
costs.
started in 2016, and so, yes, 2016 it went live.
And so our maintenance costs, as far as what we've been budgeting, were kind of low for a while there, as the system wasn't fully operational. And then once it was, that's when you probably saw that big jump in the budget piece. And then now, back to Joe's point about it's been kind of going up incrementally.
Hmm.
And the county does do a good job about giving us advance notice. So we've got some information from them about what they think that those costs will be for the next 5 years, I think, so that it is a little predictable for budget purposes.
To my knowledge, Dane County's not building a new 911 center, are they? They still on the first floor of the city-county building?
They are first floor, city-county building. I don't
Right.
see them moving. They have a backup, a dispatch center out on Highway, it's in Cottage Grove area, right by waste management or the dump out there, in the same building
Okay.
as the coroner's office. So that's where backup dispatch is. And then, I don't anticipate them moving out of those two locations.
And they
anytime
don't
soon.
have any, at one point, we helped them and that was fine.
Mhm.
But at this point, as I'm speaking now, they don't have any equipment in our police department, fire department, in any of our buildings. Do we
Not
have
for
any of their,
communications.
do we have any of their equipment?
For emergency management, yes, not for communications.
Okay. And no vehicles or anything parked at our garages anymore, is it?
No, the benefit of them actually purchasing the old fire station two is the fact that they will have plenty of room to park their own equipment in their own building.
Okay. 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 Just,
Yeah, communications left the city of Fitchburg in 2017, and actually to their benefit because everything that they have built at their backup communication center resembles what they have at their primary center. So when they have to upstaff their backup, their communicators know exactly what they're getting themselves into, and there's nothing in the way of a learning curve. So they're much better off where they're at right now with communications than when they were in the basement of the old public safety building.
yeah, well, for people watching, I can clarify this real easy. You want to be a good neighbor, but at times too, you don't want to be taken for granted. You don't want equipment sitting around here forever. I know they did have equipment at our fire station for quite some time, and no questions were ever asked. It was just parked, taking up our space. But at the same time, that's over with. I know it's kind of over with now. And the 911 center is still in the same location. I'm just a little surprised that that's not fallen apart yet. But yeah, I obviously know where they are. And no, you want to be a good neighbor. Like even if they said tomorrow, can we house something at the fire department for a month? I'm fine with it.
I think one thing
If
we're
it's
trying
some emergency, I'm fine with it, but not permanent, that's all I'm saying.
one thing we're trying to do, we're trying to address that as professionally as possible. We understand that there are times when we have to assist, but typically speaking, a memorandum of understanding is written so that the expectations are up front.
Anybody else on it? Question, anything?
No, good.
Okay, thank you,
All
sir.
right, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, B is gonna be a resolution, it's our 10-20, resolution authorizing Dane County Services for stormwater permit review and inspection for 2020. The resolution number, I don't always do it backwards, is R 10-20. I need a motion.
So
Motion to
moved.
approve.
Approve, Misty?
So this is another one of those annual pre-approvals. So we contract with Dane County in order to do all of our stormwater permit stuff. This is also connected to, not that long ago, we did a fee change structure. So these fees that we pay Dane County are now passed on to the applicant. So there is a cost that the city has to pay up front, but then we should be reimbursed in full for any of the new developments after the fee schedule was changed.
No questions.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Next is resolution, it's our 17-20. This is 2020 annual purchase for bulk fuel. We need a motion.
So moved.
Misty?
So it's timely that you asked the question about WEX. So WEX was the credit card to use anywhere. The bulk fuel, this is now the purchase of the fuel for the city pumps that we have down there. It's off of state contract, but since our tanks aren't big enough, we can't take a full tanker. So it actually costs us more to use the city pumps than it does to go to a commercial vendor. But we do have that as an option so that we know that it's secure.
No questions.
Are we paying more when we go to the pump?
We pay more when we go to the city pumps. We pay less when we go to any other gas station in the city.
Really?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Especially if you factor in all of the equipment that it takes to have our own pumps. But you think of an emergency situation, we know that we have control over that gas, that it's secure. So it's good to have still.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, carried. Next is resolution, it's our 1920 authorizing payment to the Fitchburg, this is the Chamber Visitors and Business Bureau. It's a tourism contract. Motion,
So moved.
Misty.
So back in 2016, there was an act passed that said all of the room tax that we collect, 70% of it is required to be given to a designated tourism entity. We have a contract with the Fitchburg Chamber to act as that designated tourism entity on our behalf. This pre-approval is in front of you for, again, the annual payments to make that process a little bit easier, and it's based on budget. And then as long as it'll be based on what we actually collect, and as long as it stays within budget, this will be the time that you approve it.
No questions.
I'm good.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Next is resolution, it's our 24-20, amending the 2020 general fund budget. This is drug testing for certain defendants.
Do a motion to approve?
Motion. Misty?
In many respects, this one could have been done administratively, but the mayor felt that it was important to come to you guys because it's also a policy decision. This was an initiative by the judge. Right now, there's a program where defendants can participate, and as long as they get drug tested and meet certain requirements, the charges are dropped or at least reduced. We've had some problem, either people not feeling comfortable joining the program because they can't afford the drug test, which defeats the purpose from the judge's perspective. The other concern from the finance department is a lot of those charges that we do invoice out end up going to collection, and we spend a lot of time following up on them and ultimately often do not get paid for them. So we're bringing it forward to you guys to see if you would like to waive those charges to certain defendants. The judge at the time would determine whether or not they met the federal poverty guidelines in order to get that waiver of not being billed back for it, and then the city would pay that cost.
No questions.
So the judge at this point holds the trump card as far as if he wants to waive it or not. Would he be the sole one to make that decision?
Under the new process, yes. So he would determine whether or not they met the 150% poverty guideline. So you guys set the policy still with this resolution. The judge would then be acting on that policy and determining if the defendant met that threshold or not.
So let me repeat this back. So this is a new program.
Not exactly.
Okay.
So the program has existed. It's just we've always billed back those drug charges to the defendants.
Got it.
So the city absorbing the cost and not billing that back, that's the piece that's new that we're bringing for your approval.
Yep. And so in that regard, really what we're saying is we're trying to encourage those people to take that direction. The costs associated with that would be waived under the judge's discretion based on guidelines. And then that way, not only are we, to some extent, encouraging them to pursue that particular direction, we're also taking responsibilities off of staff to recover money that's likely not going to be recovered.
Well said, yes.
Okay, but let's take this another step. Let's go in the other direction. So the judge waives the fee for Mary and John, and they don't complete the program. They skip town, they head to Chicago, they see greener grass on the other side of the border. What happens?
So the drug test that we actually do would end up being a city cost. But generally, if they do skip town or decide not to participate in the program, they won't be getting drug tested at that point. So there wouldn't be a cost to the city either. So we don't pay a flat fee, it's
There
per
won't be a
test.
cost?
Only if they got tested and then didn't continue in the program. But as long as they're continuing to get tested, it would continue to be a city cost.
Okay.
Does another community have the same program? Do you know?
I'm not familiar, I'm not sure. I can find out. Oh, here you go.
Is-
Actually, he
Well,
says in
the-
here, doesn't he?
I will,
So the,
I will,
Is it possible to provide an example, a role-play example of when this would be used?
so the program already exists, and in the judge's memo, he talks about the first offenders program, which is 16 years old and under, and then the drug monitoring program, which is 17 years and older. But get back to your question before, he does say that the drug testing as part of these programs is unique to Dane County. So let's say I am a participant, I go to court and I say that I want to participate in this program and I will stop doing whatever illicit activity I'm doing. I agree to get drug tested in order to confirm that I am on that right path. And then at the end of this period of time, the record is, there's no conviction on their record. So right now, we're doing that. That's a program that currently exists. The defendant would go to the lab, get drug tested. The invoice comes to the city pays the bill, and then we send out an invoice to the defendant saying, okay, now you have to pay us back for this charge. What this is saying is now, and we would still do all of that up until the part where we send an invoice to the defendant. So they would still have to do the drug tests in order to continue in the program. The city would still continue to pay the costs, but we would only invoice back the defendant that did not meet the 150% federal poverty guideline.
I know this is a small amount of money in the scheme of things. So this is for minors. Are we saying that the cost of the drug test at 150% of the federal poverty level guideline, are we assuming that that is the household income?
I asked that question, and it sounds like the judge would make that determination at the time.
And what evidence would these individuals provide us to substantiate that?
Right, so I asked that question as well. My guess would be it's generally based off of tax returns. But again, that would be information that the judge would see. We would not submit it to the city at all because I don't want that open records information. So the judge would have the discretion to look at that information, make that determination, and then decide as part of participation in the program whether or not they would be billed.
I think I can answer this one. Due to the fact I do trust Judge Hamney's opinion, and I'll trust that he'll get back to us if it's not working, or let us know. He's not new to the program, he's not new to the city. I'll leave it at that, and if it doesn't work, I'm sure maybe he'll let us know, or you can.
I'd be happy to give you a report maybe at the end of 2020, how much we spent in total on these drug tests and how much we billed and then how much we actually collected. That's a relatively easy report to provide after the end of the year.
I think it would be great to see what kind of success the program has had as well, because the money in the scheme of things is one thing, to make sure that, you know, it really isn't about the money, it's more about getting people on the right path.
I'm sure that's where he's going to a little bit, but we just want to make sure it's working, that's all. He knows that.
I know he believes very strongly that it's a successful program overall, which is why he wants to encourage more people to participate and doesn't want it to be a financial burden for people to not participate.
Just, That's fair. I think just let us know how it's going, that's all. Yeah. Okay,
I hope it's successful.
I'm good with that. Any other question? Not all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, carried. Next is ordinance 2020-0- weight, creating section 10-188 of the Fitchburg ordinance approving the distribution of payment for state property tax credit directly to the city of Fitchburg. I need a motion.
So moved.
Misty?
The short answer of this is that this is a way for the city to get interest on money without any additional cost necessarily. There'll be a little bit extra work, but ultimately we'll make a decent amount of money. So a couple years ago, the state passed a new law that said that we could get the property tax credits directly from the state, and then it would be my responsibility to distribute those tax credits to all of the overlying jurisdictions. A benefit to us being we get to hold on to that $7 million for about a month, which will be about, at a 1% interest rate, is like $6,000. And the cost for me to send out the money is very minimal. It's just staff time. So it's a way for us to get some extra money into the general fund. Right now, what's happening is the state gives the money to the county, and then the county sends it out to everybody. So we get our piece of it only.
No questions.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, carried. And the last one we have is resolution, it's our 32-20, amending the 2020 Dane County contract with the Senior Center for increased funding. This was a direct referral. Need a motion.
Motion to approve?
Misty?
So you guys already approved the original 2020 contract with the county. The county subsequently added a 3% inflation increase. So it's the exact same requirements for our purposes, but they want to give us more money. So we have to get the contract addendum approved through you guys. The one unique thing, though, is there's also language in this resolution that if there's future increases that come through that only increase the amount of money they give us, that we would approve those administratively. We wouldn't come back if it simply is them giving us more money. If the requirements change or any of that stuff, then we would still bring it back.
Any questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, carried. Announcements or anything? If not, our next meeting is February 25th, same time, same location for now. And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Motion to adjourn, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, we're adjourned.